Hey everybody, I'm Beebs Kelly. Welcome back to another video. Please excuse my voice. I'm still recovering from a cold. I still don't feel 100%. I don't look 100%, but we're here to talk about the SAG Awards, the Screen Actors Guild Awards. And let's begin with a couple of looks from designers I usually really like, but they missed the mark this time, disappointingly. Let's start with Schiaparelli. This really suspicious, horrible idea of a dress that Margot Robbie wore. I dislike this. The train looks like a comforter, like a duvet. You guys called it in the comments. Yes, it does. It looks like a duvet. And it's unfortunate because I would have loved it with just the pink waistband. Like a black mini dress with that pink waistband, maybe even like a normal train off one shoulder would have been okay. But this, it literally looks like you've got a pillow and a blankie attached to your dress. It's too voluminous, it's too poofy, it's too filled looking. It looks like it's filled with down. The sculptural intensity of this just did not communicate as intended, unfortunately. I think that the attempt at bringing a little bit more balance to it with the ankle bracelet was also just not enough to compete with this giant bubblegum pink explosion off the side of her dress. We also have Maddie Ziegler in Alexander McQueen, and you guys know I quite like Alexander McQueen, but not this time. I don't love the tattered mummy vibe that this brings. It's also quite bulky around the waist and hip especially. It's sort of obscuring her figure as well at the same time as looking incredibly tattered. Perhaps the styling wasn't the best option for this style of dress either. I'm not sure what would have helped it, but I'm not loving it. Next up, we have two attempts at high drama. One was much more successful than the other. First, we have Edebiri in Luar, and I really like Luar, actually. The designer, Raul Lopez, is great. And here, I like the idea of this. I like the direction it was trying to go, but the gingham combined with the volume has created just a little too much chaos in the silhouette. It's like just maybe a little bit too much happening. Busy patterns like this one tend to be more successful with simpler, more streamlined, sleek silhouettes. It's also not just the fact that it's gingham and smaller in its pattern, but that it's high contrast, it's black and white. Perhaps if it were like a little bit more gentle marrying of shades of color that were less contrasting to one another, it would have worked more successfully. Or if it were solid color, I think it would have been even more successful. Hair up would have transformed this. If she would have had an updo, this might have actually just been a completely different experience and been so great because it would have just lifted the visuals up more. Because with the hair down, it's just kind of leaning into the drop shoulder sleeve rather than complementing it, kind of just giving it a dragged down look overall. Then we have Ariana Greenblatt in Custom Vera Wang, which is almost perfection. Almost. I love the drama of this. I really do. The silhouette is dramatic, and it's got this rich, dark red velvet that's just incredibly sultry and rich and regal. I love that. The voluminous skirt, though, left her looking a tad uncomfy in some pictures. So perhaps for her, having that skirt be lowered just a tad would have helped and just given her a little more comfortability in the dress, but it's a beautiful dress nonetheless. But some of the best of the night came from the following three designers. First, we have Louis Vuitton. I love this dress on Emily Blunt. It's one of the best of the night. Just absolutely gorgeous. Look how perfectly this fits her. We are having no weird puckering, no weird shifting, no weird gathering happening anywhere. And these types, this style of dress is really kind of hard to pull off and not get weird stuff happening just because it doesn't have as much anchoring it and as much structure. It's kind of relying on some fashion tape sometimes, and it's just impeccably done. Her hair, makeup, and jewelry are all complementary to the look. It looks perfectly balanced. I think it also would have looked great with an updo, but I don't mind the hair down here. I think it looks fine. Emma Stone in Custom Louis Vuitton. This is really nice. It's a big improvement from some of her recent flops. The strap placement works for her just fine. For some who maybe have like broader shoulders, inverted triangle shapes, leaning that way, the straps would have been aligned a little too narrow. Color isn't necessarily my favorite on her. I can't decide if it's washing her out or not. It's just maybe a little pale, but I still like it overall. Next, we have Atelier Versace, and Anne Hathaway is wearing this fabulous pop of color. I love the bodice of this. She can really get away with this. Off the shoulder, really dramatically wide, because she has a smaller bust. She has really balanced proportions. She's not a particularly wide frame. She has a more narrow frame. So this works fine for her. It's not creating that sort of top heavy vibe you would get if you had wider shoulders and or a bigger bust. It would not work the same. I think the necklace was perfect also because that little bit of chain coming down just really encourages you to go straight down to the big chunky belt. Now, some might not be a fan of the belt, but I think this look works. Selena's, on the other hand, was a little bit less successful. This definitely needed some more room in the bust. She may be wearing a bustier or some sort of corset underneath there. It almost looks like you can see the boning of a corset underneath the dress, and I do not think that that's part of the dress. I don't think that that's part of the structure of the dress. I think that that may be her undergarments showing through just a tad, which is unfortunate. She needed to pick something without boning if her dress was a tad too tight. She needed just something smooth. But, you know, perhaps sometimes in a pinch you have to do what you have to do. It also looks like there's like some push-up effect going on that could have been done a little bit better. I think that perhaps part of the problem is she needs deeper cups. She needs the bust area of her dresses and whatever structure she wears underneath, whatever bra or situation she has underneath, needs to have deeper cups because this is creating that widening effect of the boob. And if you're busty, you get that no matter what you do. That just happens a lot of the time, but it can happen even more or become problematic for outfits the way it almost looks here. It's almost a bit too much if your cups are not big enough or deep enough, if it's just the wrong shape. So I feel like she needs a little bit of help with that getting sorted out because it just doesn't look quite as flattering as it should. I love the dress otherwise. It's very, very beautiful. It is a tad wrinkly though across the bottom and the seams. Also, it has those wrinkles or lines across the hip area. Now, that is going to happen if you're sitting down no matter what. That will happen eventually, even in a dress or skirt that isn't prone to wrinkles. You'll get them after sitting a long time. But it can especially happen or be exacerbated by things that are too tight. It can happen without having spent any time sitting at all. You can get that pulling across there. This looks just a tad too tight, this dress does. I think it just could have been fitted better for her. Better options than squeezing yourself into something. And that's just sort of the impression that this one is giving, unfortunately. Next, we have Brie Larson, and I surprisingly like this. Her body type is a little bit top heavy. She has quite narrow hips. She has slightly broader shoulders. She's a little bit rectangular in her torso. So this is actually creating a really nice overall balance to her silhouette. I also love this peachy blush tone. I think this is really interesting. It's really different. I really like it. The top is almost giving me a little bit like maybe a little cheap vibe, like it's not quite as elevated as the skirt, but I still don't mind it. I think that overall this look is really nice. It also would have looked really nice with an updo. I like it. It's something new and different that's not unflattering. And as we've talked about before, a lot of times if a designer is really trying to push for something that's new and different, it ends up not flattering to the person, and I feel bad that they're in something so insane. This is not that way. It actually does bring balance to her proportions. She looks nice in it. It's a flattering color, and it's new and different. Bonus. And the most popular designer of the night was Armani Privee, with several celebrities opting for their excellent track record. And for the most part, they did not disappoint, with just one exception. That is Lily Gladstone. Stop. No. This is the opposite of what she needs. This is so unfair. It's rude. I love the color of this. I love the skirt portion of this. This tiered fringe skirt with the angles, almost like chevron angles, is so fabulous. I love it so much. I even love the change of color as it goes down. But the top, the bust, the halter neck style, it's just not fair at all. This is really widening her shoulder line a lot. She has slightly rounded shoulders, and so this is just making her look way, way bigger than she is. And I'm just disappointed for her because this is a beautiful color on her and her earrings look cool with it. It's just, halter necklines are just the worst. Or I should say, they are quite challenging. If you have rounded shoulders, if you're quite busty, things like that, if you carry a little bit of weight up here, they just can end up making you look so much bigger than you are, or just simply not be a flattering option, unfortunately. So this is just disappointing. I also think that the angle of the bust area here is not as flattering as it should be. I do think having her up for this was a good option, and her makeup looks beautiful. Next up, we have this absolute sweet perfection on Carey Mulligan. This is so fabulous, and look, no more black. In my last fashion edition on the awards ceremonies, I completely forget which one it is, I was talking about how she's worn black gowns every single awards show so far this year, and look at this beautiful, shiny, champagne-y gold, just amazing. This is so beautiful. I love it. And it's so well done. This is a satiny liquid metal dress done perfectly. Look, you guys, there are no weird seams. There's nothing overdone about it. It has interest and volume and draping and movement without being over the top and messing with the gorgeous, gorgeous fabric. So stunning. It is perfectly draped. It fits her perfectly. It does not look like it's falling down despite being strapless. Everything about this is a complete and utter success. It is so perfect. What happened? It's amazing. I love it. Necklace, though, I would say is not perfect choice. I don't know that it matches enough, but I'm not mad at it because the dress is so perfect that she can wear whatever necklace she wants. It's not going to ruin this magnificent dress. Same designer, we have Jessica Chastain. It's very gorgeous and romantic and beautiful. It accentuates her waist really nicely, though it's not my absolute favorite. I wish it was maybe in a lighter color so I could see more of the detail as it goes down into the skirt, but it's still really beautiful. I think her styling was great as well. And then we have Elizabeth Debicki in this silver gown with a diffused edge where it gently transitions into this nude lining, just perfectly matched to her skin tone with these jewels. Very pretty. It almost looked frayed at first glance, but then with closer inspection, it is not. This is how it's meant to be. It's a diffused edge. I think this is a case of it being better in person than it is on camera. Nonetheless, it's really well executed, very beautiful, different, something new without being totally weird and unflattering. It looks really nice. I do think it looks like it's sitting a tad low on her chest, but she is super duper tall and small chested, so perhaps it's just an illusion that that's coming across that way. I think if the straps, or rather the bodice of it, had more of a triangular shape before diffusing, it would have avoided it looking like it's sitting too low on her chest because there's just a lot of space up here, and because you have this nude lining for the diffusion of the crystals and sparkles coming up, she couldn't really do a necklace very successfully here. She could have gone with bigger statement earrings if she wanted, but she's so pale toned. I think she was just leaning into this almost ice queen vibe here. But yeah, I think if the bodice came in more of a triangular or even a sweetheart sort of a shape, it would have eliminated the illusion that it's sitting too low. But of course, she can't decide that. That is how it is designed. Then we have Brendan Fraser and Giorgio Armani looking really nice. Next up, another red carpet staple with Dior. Erica Ferrera, finally. She just needed to gravitate towards a real solid choice like Dior to get it right. Finally, this awards season, I don't have a long list of things that could have been improved with her look. This looks really nice. Personally, would have suggested she go with bigger earrings. Definitely goes minimalistic when it comes to jewelry, but with a dress like this, like really leaning into something a little bit more elegant and throw in the jewelry because the dress doesn't have anything to compete with it besides the sleeves, and it's not going to ruin anything. She should have gone for some more jewelry, but this dress is romantic. It flatters her figure. I also think that like her hairstyle could have maybe been improved for this, but regardless, the dress itself is great for her. Then we have Naomi Watts in Dior Haute Couture, and this is really pretty. It's a lovely take on the sheer skirts because look, it's lined. So I'm really glad that we don't have a full sheer situation with just briefs or something like that, thank goodness. I'm not totally obsessed with the way the leaves are across the bust area in the top, combined with the collar and whatnot, but it's really giving its own vibe. Like it's definitely got an aesthetic going for it with the puff sleeves and such, so I like it for what it is. It's just not my personal favorite. I think it's well done. It's better than a lot of them. It's nice. And then we have Sterling K. Brown and Corey Hawkins in Dior Men. Both are great, but Sterling looked just absolutely dashing in this, and I really like the lapel pin. Not many guys do that anymore, and I think it's a really nice touch. But on to some designers who just didn't quite cut it. First, we have Prada with Meryl Streep. It's just not my favorite. Now, this is the same pattern that we've seen in a lot of other things from Prada's collection right now. It's fine. It's just not my favorite. The color combination with the swirly pattern, it kind of reminds me of those like dandelions that have dried up and you can make a wish It kind of reminds me of those. I don't know. This silhouette for her, though, it's fine. It does nip in at the waist nicely for her, which looks really flattering, and the swishy skirt is also nice. But I ultimately think that these shoulder pads combined with the silhouette leaned a little bit frumpy almost. And it may have been better without the shoulder pads because we also have a high collar. And so I definitely think if it didn't have the shoulder pads, or if they were more minimal, it would have been much more flattering to her. But Prada wasn't the only underwhelming designer of the evening. We also have Saint Laurent, who left us wanting more better. It was just meh. Quinta Brunson looking a little frumpy around the waistline in this dress, unfortunately. The style of bodice here with the plunge cut out is not looking graceful on its own. But then you also have this sort of loosely draped fabric coming down from the cups, and then it's almost like a capelet inspired panel along the back that's just completely taking away from her figure. What is it there for besides erasing her waistline, which is a rude thing to do to a lady? So I'm not loving the design of this dress. The innovation is sacrificing her nice figure, which is not fair to her. It would have been more successful to just go for a capelet on this dress. You could have kept the weird plunge bodice and just done a capelet if that's what they wanted to do. But this sort of weird attaching it to the back and stuff like that, obscuring her waistline, is just not working. Otherwise, though, she does look nice and sleek and polished. I think between the hair down, the dangly earrings, and the big necklace, and this sweetheart plunge neckline, it's a lot happening right here that's not really flowing nicely together. It may have been more successful with an updo, or perhaps without the pendant or smaller earrings. I don't know. Something needed to change to make this work all together. I think if it had sleeves, she could have gotten away with the necklace and the long earrings maybe, though. I don't know. It's just not quite vibing. And then we had Jeremy Allen White just looking okay, you know? I'm not blown away by this at all. Luckily, we found mostly winners with Chanel, and both Ellie Saab and Dolce & Gabbana brought their A game with some of the most stunning dresses. Let's begin with Custom Chanel and Penelope Cruz. This is perfection, but give the woman a necklace next time. The poor thing, she needed a necklace real bad. Something to match those earrings would have been fabulous. Like a collar length necklace. Something right here between the collarbones would have been perfect, because you wouldn't want it competing with the bejeweled sort of off the shoulder neckline at all. You would not want that. So you would need it to be short, but it definitely should have been there. It would have just really completed the look and tied it all in together. But this is so beautiful. I love this midnight blue bodice. The sparkles are so beautiful. It's very romantic. The skirt is fabulous. And also, as we've spoken about, she has a shorter torso and a less well-defined waist. And so this waistline location and silhouette, the point at which the skirt begins, all of it is so perfect for her. It matches her proportions exactly as she needs. Love it. And then we have Belle Poli in this textile-inspired Empire baby doll silhouette. It's got lots and lots of tulle to up the volume, and I'm just not loving it completely. It's a little too editorial for me. Like, I could see this really working nicely in something very artistic, a setting like a photo shoot, a magazine cover, things like that. I'm just not loving it for this, but at least it's interesting. And we have Reese Witherspoon in Ellie Saab Haute Couture. Is this not the best she's ever looked? Pretty sure it is. This may be. It is impeccable. It is perfection. The shoes should have been matte or darker in shade. And the necklace maybe could have been a bit bigger. It's kind of disappearing. It maybe, something a little chunkier or with like a ruby pendant would have been really nice. Just to make it come forward a little bit more, because you really do almost miss that necklace there. But the rest of this dress is insanely beautiful. It's so gorgeous. And again, we have somebody who chose a dress that matches her proportions perfectly. She also does not have like an exceptionally well-defined waist, and sometimes can lean a little bit to broader shoulders. Not always. So this being completely strapless like this really benefits from the draping coming off from the one side. That asymmetry and that movement of the fabric just encourages your eye to just go down and then rest right around the waistline. And that draping is creating the illusion of an even more well-defined waist. It is so perfect. I love it. Thank goodness we really needed more successes, more wows on these award shows. Not all of them have been complete and utter disasters, but like there's only a couple that are like best dressed status. SAG Awards was different, thank goodness. But not so fast, because we have some disasters on the way. But first, Dolce & Gabbana, Halle Bailey, looking fabulous. This is a custom gown, this gorgeous plum burgundy shade. It's got these gorgeous piping across the bodice, flared mermaid skirt here, full of tulle, full of volume, absolutely stunning. Now, there is one complaint. Its bodice is not working perfectly for her. She's busty, and this bodice is a little too small and tight. It's too low, and it looks not big enough because we're getting quad boob status here. It's chopping her boobs in two. That's not fair. Nobody wants that. It's too squashy. But besides that, this is perfect. I love her updo, her hair and makeup, her jewelry, the dress itself. Love it so much. But here we go. Total disasters. We have Givenchy with a very disappointing outing. Like, truly tragic. Catherine Hahn's look is so awkward. It just looks highly unflattering and poorly made. It's frumpy. So frumpy. What's happening? Why would they do this? I also am hating these shoes that look like you have pantyhose on. They are the worst idea. I do not like the sheer see-through toe of these shoes. They are not invited. This bulky, high contrast thing across her bust with the rest of the dress poking up underneath that just looks like some cheap nightgown. Who did that? Who thought that was a good idea? It's not. And then we have Joey King, and this is just not working for me. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the green Givenchy dress Wong wore. I think it might have been the Golden Globes or the Critics' Choice Awards. I don't remember. She wore it earlier this year, and it had the flowers and the sheer skirts layering up, and it was much more successful than this because it was just all in the green, so it allowed the focal point to be that layering of the sheer and the embroidered flowers. This, they screwed it up, trying to distract your eye away from the sheer and the flowers with this black panel across the boob that looks messy and not flattering. And then this beige color. I just don't love sheer stuff in beige. It's too pantyhose status. It's too nylon status. It's not translating well, especially not on camera. I really think the beige color is to blame here though, because it also doesn't match her skin tone closely enough. I think if it were blushy in color, or if it were like black and white or lilac or pale green or gray, I don't know, maybe not gray. If it were like something else, it could have worked. And once again, those see-through shoes, goodbye, take them away. See-through shoes and non-existent skirts, we don't need it, we don't want it. And then similar to Givenchy that just did not bring their best to the SAG Awards, we have Balmain. This green piping on Storm Reid's dress is meant to look like vines, but to me it just looks messy here. I think it would have been far more successful if it were tidy green piping and let the flowers be that sort of natural vibe with their flowiness and imperfections and rough edges. Letting those flowers be the focal point with clean and tidy piping, I feel like would have been more successful. I do think that this silhouette is really interesting, and I like the cap sleeves. The plunge neckline I think is great. All of it is really playing nicely together. It's just that piping along the edges. It's also feeling kind of heavy. So I think that could have been edited, or even if it were just thinner, a little bit more narrow, it would have helped. I do think in this, an updo would have really livened it up though, and allowed you to just feel like she was elongated up out of it. Extend that vertical line some, it would have just pushed it into a wow factor moment. I also really like that she wore red shoes with this, actually, because it kind of brings in the red tone of the flowers. I think that was a nice touch. Even though it doesn't match perfectly, it goes. We have Tracee Ellis Ross. She's like in every other time she looks great, and every other time it's a total miss. This is unfortunate. It's hitting her too low in the bust and in the hip. The top itself looks like it's a size too big for her because of that and because of these shoulders. It's creating a frumpy look. This looks frumpy, unfortunately. The shoulder pads are way too heavy. And then the sweetheart low neckline combined with those shoulder pads makes this whole top area look long and bulky. Not working. It's just throwing everything off too much, unfortunately. Next up, we have Danielle Brooks wearing custom Christian Siriano. This is a representation of our inner thoughts when we are getting ready and do not know what to wear. If we can't decide, should we do a skirt? Should we do a pantsuit? Should we do a dress? We don't know. Why not have Christian Siriano make you a half and half? While this is perfectly executed, I don't think it's a great idea for a wearable design. I'm just not loving it. I think if it didn't have the big, like, boa-like purple caterpillar trim on the tiered skirt, I would have liked it much, much more because it is so well done. It's very, very well executed, but I'm just not loving it altogether. Situation, at least. And then we have Leighton Meester in Custom St. John, and this is just okay. It's not as flattering as it could be for her or her bust or her stomach area due to the way it's cut. It's almost making it look like she has a belly where she doesn't, just creating the illusion of belly pooch that she doesn't have. So that's really unfortunate. I also think that this strapline situation, maybe like thinner straps or a different neckline in general, would have maybe just helped this be more flattering for her, but I do love the brown satin collar. That's really pretty. Notable mentions of other really well-dressed celebrities include Tatanka Means, who has been looking fabulous at every awards show so far. This is no different. And Cheryl Lee Ralph's dress was also really, really nice. Taraji P. Henson here. We have this pointy bodice corners that are just a little bit difficult to make look just right. I feel like her bust area just needed a little bit of help to be more flattering. The rest of this I like a lot. I like her hairstyle and her jewelry and her makeup for this. The dramatic silhouette of this is the focal point. And then wearing Venus Prototype X, we have Ciara. And it's coming off a little bit messy or tacky due to the flashback from the camera. I think that an updo would have helped to open up this whole vibe with this high neck here. I also think the dangly earrings were kind of a mistake because, you know, it's got this high neckline, it's got this flashback going on. It's just not perfectly styled, and I'm not 100% behind it for the SAG Awards, which tend to be a little bit nicer in vibe. I'm not sure wearing a latexy pleather sort of dress is the best. I think this would have been more Grammys or something like that, People's Choice Awards, something like that. Maybe would have been a better venue for this, but it's still an interesting silhouette and it's still relatively nicely done. And then we have Rachel Brosnahan in Tomorrow Ralph, and the more I look at it, the less I like. I mean, it's an exquisite execution here. You cannot take that away. It is really, really well made. I just don't love it for this. I think for a magazine, for a photo shoot, totally yes. For an award ceremony, totally no. Big no. Not so much. The texture and the shine is a lot for something with this intense of a design already. It's got volume, it's got the pleats, it's a tiered skirt, and then there's a bunch of, I don't know, flowers on her chest. So there's just a lot happening all at once to also have a degree of a metallic fabric involved. So it's just almost giving ugly vibes, unfortunately. The most B-team looks of the evening include Billie Eilish and Vivienne Westwood, but this is one of her better looks because, as you can see here, the layering is adding interest while also the top having some aspects of it that are reined in and not just huge and oversized. Like, the trousers are big and oversized, but there's balance to be had in this because it's reined in at the bottom of the sweater vest, and the shirt itself does not look like it's completely ginormous across her waistline. Like, this is one of the more flattering options that Billie Eilish has been seen in for some time. And we have Greta Lee in the row, and this is just frumpy. There's no way around it. It has no shape. The gloves are dragging the whole thing down because they look heavy and stiff and just thick. The gloves were white. It may have been a little bit better, but it's just begging for a little bit of waist definition somewhere to help it out. And then we have Melissa McCarthy in this silver situation. I'm just not loving this. It's a bit too fake looking, the fabric itself, which is unfortunate. And also in shiny fabrics, it can be really hard to have like huge drama like in the sleeves or the silhouette or things like that, because it becomes too much too quickly when you have something that's really shiny. And I feel like that's just what's happening here. The sleeves come off as really messy, really frumpy, really bulky, really huge. I think it would have been much more successful if they were just like flutter sleeves, like this one that Angelina Jolie has on. Flutter sleeves in this would have been more successful than these monstrosities. I'm not sure exactly what the deal is. It's unfortunate because otherwise the dress itself is nice and simple and monochrome, chrome. So it could have been a fine silhouette for her and been flattering to her if it weren't for these big old sleeves, making the whole look messy. Nicole Bahari and Greta Constantine, she looks uncomfortable. in this. She looks like she's wearing something that's not her vibe, that doesn't suit her, or that she's not comfortable in. That's what she looks like here in these pictures. I think that this off-the-shoulder opera coat inspired train situation is just not complimenting her either, and it's not really bringing anything nice to the look. It's a little bit too much like pool floaties when you take away the volume and the framing that an actual opera coat would give. If it would have had that, it would have been more interesting, more successful, but it's just these two strings of pink fabric out the back. It kind of makes it confusing and incongruous. It doesn't really work. It's not bringing much, and it's looking too messy. A little too pool floaty with tails hanging off. I don't know. Overall, it's just sending this vibe that she picked something she didn't feel confident in, unfortunately. So I feel bad, but it was not successful. And we have Wong in this Iris Van Herpen dress. It does not get the stamp of approval from my toddler, who said that it does not look good. It's just too sculptural for this occasion. Now, she did take the sort of umbrella vibe. It said leaves, but to me, it reads as umbrella. She took those off to present an award and presumably for sitting at the actual ceremony. But that still leaves these really spiky sleeves, and the whole thing just looks a little bit messy. I would have liked the pattern and the way it changes into smaller and smaller patterns as it goes down. I would have liked those aspects of it without the big puff pointy sleeves and the umbrella. And I'm also not a huge fan of this applique, this nude bedazzled turtleneck situation. I just think there's too much happening and it's not quite working. It looks a little too crafty, a little too got carried away with the hot glue gun situation here. But we have Issa, huge improvements. This looks really nice on her. It draws the eye to the chest and neckline area and the bust area, and it just really keeps it there. It allows for the rest to be just slimming and streamlined. It's controlling the focal point to be right here. It's ingenious. It's very nice because she has a more rectangular shape, meaning she doesn't have like some super pronounced waistline. So this is a really great technique to just create a focal point up by the face, draw the eye there, and let it stay there. I think she looks really, really nice, and I love her hair. Next up, we have Divine Joy Randolph in Valdrin Shahidi, and I think it's just all right. The diagonal lines are good. They are quite flattering, very, very helpful. It's a slimming effect. It's just a flattering form of movement to add to a dress. It's just a really great technique. However, the skirt down has a lot of wrinkles in it, and I don't like that. It's creating a messy vibe. The asymmetry of the neckline, I mean, it's okay. The sort of ruffled flowers, I think they're okay. I don't love them. I'm not obsessed, but I think it's just fine. I think it's one of her better looks lately, too. And then we have Jennifer Aniston in Celine, and this is just lovely. I think the diagonal lines, this sort of almost faux wrap, are creating the illusion of more waist definition for her, which is great. It's really, really balanced. It's gorgeous. And since it's nice and sparkly, she did not require a necklace for this. It's really nice. And it's not black, so it's also another case of doing something a little different from what she normally wears, which is good to see. Then we have Hannah Waddingham's. This red dress had a shimmer to it that was almost iridescent. It's coming off just a tad cheap looking in the photos though, unfortunately. The gathering is flattering, the way that it's draped is pretty flattering, but it's just not really reading well on camera from these flash photography for this situation. I think if it were matte, it would have been very helpful to the look overall. Let's pause for a moment to take a look at some more menswear. Idris Elba looking fabulously perfect. Best dressed man. Alexander Skarsgård coming in at a close second though, looking impeccable. This is great. When does he not look perfect though? Also Mr. Matthew McFadden looked really nice. Pedro Pascal though, looks like he lost or forgot his jacket at home. The SAG Awards are definitely a place where you need a suit jacket. Like, I get this is a fashion moment, okay? I'm not taking that away. But at this location, this occasion, without a suit jacket, you definitely look underdressed, which is rude. You know, it's rude to show up somewhere looking underdressed. So if you wanted to do that as a fashion moment, you would have needed to do it at a different venue. For the SAG Awards, it looked bad, unfortunately. It looked wrinkly as well. So he really needed a coat, a jacket, even just a vest, something. He needed something. Liked Coleman Domingo's off-white suit. It was not too intense. The color palette is pleasing. The interest stays in this high contrast design up here. I think it was really successful, something new and different that wasn't too intense, as I said. But Tyler James Williams, I am not a fan. This color is fabulous, but I don't love the volume in the trousers. Notable mentions of extremely poorly dressed people at this event included Ed McVeigh. What in the volume is this? I do not like it at all. It's just terrible. Put the volume away. Alex Borstein unfortunately looks very, very messy once again, while Elaine here is trying out the pool floaty vibe. It's not working. We need to stop making fashions that emulate pool floaties and toddler pool safety devices. Phil Dunster in these glaringly white pants, just that's all your eyes go to. You just rest on the pants. You forget about the jacket. Didn't even need to wear a jacket. These white pants are all you're looking at. It didn't work. It didn't look good. Something like black pants with white piping would have been much more successful. Then we have Glenn Powell in this really mismatched look. It looked like there was a scarf on. I would have rather he just wore a scarf than this lapel. It just didn't match enough. It didn't look nice. I like that sometimes, the different color lapel. Just for this situation, the pairings of this just didn't come across properly. And then we have Julia Canfield looking way, way too messy here. I love the color and the satin though. Kat Graham's dress looks like it's falling down. It's way too busy and way too pointy. Cara Jade Myers though unfortunately had a complete and total disaster. This looks like something a student or a child might make. And I feel bad saying that. That sounds really harsh, but it just does. This is so intense and disastrous. It's a terrible fail. It looks really ill-fitting across the neckline and the shoulders and the armpits and the bodice and everywhere. It looks badly fit to her. It's also creating a belly where she doesn't have one, the way this whole situation is. It's really, really unfortunate. The colors, I mean, I like how colorful it is, but it needed something that, like, just have the whole bodice be very, very plain and simple black or pink or yellow that matches some of the fringe, and then let the fringe be the exciting part or something, or make a fringe opera coat and then have a really, really plain and simple streamlined dress underneath. The mesh and the sparkles and the fringe and the colors and the poorly cut design, just all of it, there's nothing about this that's working okay. None of it is okay. And then Jillian's asymmetrical white ruffle neckline here is drawing the eye up, which is a great approach. It creates a focal point up here and keeps it there, but then these white shoes with the dark hemline are ruining it. It looks unpolished, and it also looks a little bit ill-fitting on the boob. Louisa Jacobson, we have pointy boobs, huge shoulders, and mixed media. That's just trying to give this, like, futuristic vibe, and I'm just not loving it. I don't think it was well enough executed. So despite those tragedies, overall, the SAG Awards were way, way better than the Grammys and the People's Choice Awards, which will be coming up later this month, the People's Choice Awards Fashion Edition. But the SAG Awards still wasn't, like, amazing. There were a lot more, like, really, really nice, great, really, really successful, awesome looks. But there was still a lot of, like, just kind of mediocre ones and plenty of fails too. But they were, like, perfection. The ones that really were good were really, really good. Best dressed has to include Carey Mulligan's divine dress, for sure. But also Halle Bailey, Reese Witherspoon's red dress, Emily Blunt, of course. These four had almost perfect looks, or 100% perfect looks, between the hairstyle, jewelry, makeup, the dress itself, and the dress complementing their figures, like them themselves looking even more beautiful and radiant and stunning in these dresses and looks. Even the shoes, everything was clearly well made, well put together, complemented them, looking amazing, head to toe, wonderful. First dressed has to be Cara Jade Myers, unfortunately, the men in humongous pants, Greta Lee in her frump attack, Nicole Bahari, Rachel Brosnahan, probably Margot Robbie too, with her duvet. The worst dressed list, let's be honest, could keep going. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this special fashion edition. I hope you have a very happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!